Hey there, welcome back to Farmcraft. In this video I'm going to finish my shop addition. We started this in last week's video, and if you haven't seen that, you might want to watch that first. I started with design, then went to cutting down trees, milling the lumber, stacking the lumber, and then building, and got to this point. And now we're continuing on right where we left off. So you might be wondering, why only 2 posts? A last minute design change led me to want to eliminate this post. That post essentially there mirrored out. Originally I was going to use the same beams that were on the small overhang, because this section of the roof doesn't have to support those 12 feet spacing there. It only has to support 6 feet. So the beams can be smaller. These posts and beams have to support 12 feet because they're supporting 6 feet of roof on this side and then 6 feet of roof on this side. Those had to be significantly larger. But I realized 12 feet's a lot, but it's also kind of tight, confined quarters for things like equipment, like a dump truck or a boom lift. So if I could eliminate this post right here, that would be awesome. So that's what I decided to do. This steel I-beam will span that 24 feet. Why not eliminate this post too? Well, because I'm going to put a car lift right here, and it's going to have a post anyway. This post over here, this wall is cutting in like that, and I think what I'm going to do is get some mortar and build a little pier right here for the post to sit on. The beam still will cantilever out a little bit, but not much. You'll actually notice that that post is also in this way a little bit. See how it's into the building and the beam cantilevers out some, whereas on the far end the beam cantilevers like 6 inches at most. The post would probably be somewhere like right there, and the beam would cantilever out even more, you know, probably 3.5 or 4 feet. Okay, that's what we're looking like. There is actually big rocks that I've hit. That's a big rock there, that's rock, that's rock. The amount that the weight will be distributed is much more than just the diameter of that hole. I have got some rapid setting concrete, and I'm going to do a couple different lifts because this wall here is just dry stacked, and it could, if I tried to fill that all the way up, it would definitely squeeze through that wall. So we're just going to do a little bit at a time. Perfect. Be nice to have one of those concrete vibrators, but I don't have one. Yes, there are some tools I don't have yet. So this stuff gets hard in 30 minutes. I'll be back, we'll do another lift. All right, did another pour with some rocks in there just to take up space. Do this, take up some more space over here. I might need a little bit more. I have plenty of concrete here, but let's see how this looks. You know what? I think I'm going to do that. I'll let it set up, and then I can kind of fill in around it to make it look better. There. Now we've got a nice flat rock right where I want to put my post. Purpose of this is to keep this thing from, if it gets hit by the lawnmower or something, to keep the post from jumping off. This is the other reason I'm excited about this shop, especially in the winter months when it's getting dark at 5:30. It's just really annoying. I need good light. These were recommended to me. I hope they're as good as I've been told they are. These are Hyperlite. And they have the obligatory double box. Okay, so that is just to give you something to fasten it to. So this is a 100 watt LED. To be clear, this is not 100 watt bulb equivalent. This is actually 100 watts of LED light. So the lumens, I think, are very high. And these weren't cheap, but I really wanted good light here. So I'm hoping this is going to do the trick. 14,000 lumens. So I'm going to have one of these in each bay. See how bright this thing is. Wow. Check this out. It's daylight outside, and I have a lot of lights in this shop. You know, these are LEDs here and fluorescents, and I've got a lot of lighting because I do a lot of filming in here. But check out that corner there. Now I'm going to plug the light in. I'm sure you can see the difference. That is going to be really bright. Awesome. It'll be cool to see what that looks like once we get it all done. How do I know where to cut these posts off? A lot of different ways you can do this. Now, for this one, I came down 13 inches from over there to cut off the top of that post. But now I need to match this pitch. And if my post spacing, like the spacing between this post and the building, is not exactly the same as from this post to this post, then my pitch is going to change, and that's going to be really obvious. And I could measure and be really careful, but I like doing things that are a little more fail-safe. So what I've done, taken a string line and traced that rafter down to a mark on this post, which is right there. So if that rafter were to extend out straight, this is where it would intersect this post. So that is the top of my rafter here. I measure down the width of the rafter, and that is the bottom of the rafter. Now it's going to be cut off because the beam's going to be flat, so that's what that top line is. That's a squared across line. Well, that is my top of beam. The beam is about 9 7/8. I got it wrong at first and then went and measured it. So that is my top of post, that lower line right there. So that's where I need to cut off this post, and now all I need to do is take the transit and transfer this level line to my post here and my post out there. Then I can cut the posts off and set the beam on. Sweet. And so to make it idiot proof for us idiots, let me explain. So I have my transit set up there, have it level obviously, and just picked a random mark, which ended up being this right here. And I shot that mark across to all the posts. Well, this is the post that I ran the string line, so I know where the top of the post is supposed to be here. So carefully measured down from that to the arbitrary level mark that I made and got a dimension. Doesn't matter what the dimension is, but I know the top of the post is that dimension. Let's say it was 48 inches. The top of the post is 48 inches above my level mark. So I've got that level mark over here. I measure up 48, that's top of post. I get the level mark over there. I measure up 48. Top of post. I'm ready to cut them off. They're all going to be at the same level. The roof's going to be the correct pitch, and I can set the beam on there. Cutting steel with oxyacetylene is just cool. You heat up the steel until it's red hot, and then when I push the trigger here, I'm shooting a stream of oxygen right onto the red hot steel. That causes the steel to burn, and it burns at a very high temperature, and it sustains the reaction. So you can just go right along whatever you want to cut with a stream of oxygen. So I've got 30 holes to drill in this I-beam every 40 inches because I can't nail a rafter to that, so I've got to screw a board down to it. I'm going to drill a hole and come up through with a lag screw. If only I had some tool that would make drilling into an I-beam easy. Yes, I did account for this extra thickness when I decided where to cut the posts off. And here I've got the beam flipped over. I'm drilling holes so that I can attach the beam to the top of the posts. Probably didn't have the sphincter tone that I did. That's pretty sketchy having those blocks on the forks to get extra height. So these rafters are a little bit different. They have what's called a rafter tail, this section here, and it will be more obvious once we put them up why this is necessary. So some of these have a significant amount of overlap, some a little less, but they're both on the beam. That little bit of overlap there extends the span that they could make quite a bit. I've left that last one off because that rafter is different. I can't let it run long. It's going to butt right into that one. You can see that one lands halfway across that beam. So the other one will be on the other half. See how after sitting on the beam, the rafter tails narrow down so I can put a fascia board on that that's not monstrous. The rafters are 2x8s and it's cut at an angle, so I would need a 2x10 to cover the fascia if I hadn't cut them down to rafter tails. So here's a trick for using rough cut lumber. Rough cut lumber isn't nearly as precise as regular lumber, and you're going to have variation in the width. This board is thicker, wider than this board. All I have to do is make sure the top is lined up, because the roof surface is what matters. So I get the top on both ends, especially where the cutouts are, as close as they can be. And then I go ahead and mark the cutout. Now you can see it's narrower down here, but that ensures that when this is sitting on the beam, the top will be flush. It doesn't really matter if the bottom's flush or not. I'm not putting drywall on this thing. And then this is thicker, so that cut I will just extend out and continue to cut. That will sit on the beam. The top will be flush. So as you're doing your template, you just make sure the top is good, and the bottom you cut to match your template, whatever it may be. I think they're impressed. Okay, I doubt it. You know, every year we have 2 geese that are here and lay eggs and reproduce. But actually now there's 4 adults here, so yeah, I could see there's a baby poking its head up right there. Several over here, so we might have 2 couples now making those geese. I'm too nice to want to hunt them and kill them. I'm also too lazy. You shoot one, then you got to clean it and all that stuff. I want you guys to see how heavy one of these rafters is. You know, doing this stuff out of oak is nice, but it comes at a cost. Oh. 81 pounds. Let's see how much the posts would weigh. Here's a chunk of 8x8. This is cut off of the post. 52.5 pounds. And its length is just over 24 inches. So doing that math, that post there, when it was full length, was like 360 pounds. Now it's probably, because I've cut some off, just over 300. One of the 6x6s was 212, so it's probably just shy of 200.
The smaller beams up here are about 400 pounds, and this big beam is about 530.
Working with this heavy stuff that's hard to drive nails and screws in, it's slow going. Free is nice, but it comes at a cost. Your labor and your time.
So when I estimate the total weight that I've put up so far, it's 7,000 pounds or about 3,200 kilograms. When all is said and done, the purlins and the roof and everything are on, it's going to be about 9,000 pounds and just over 4,000 kilograms.
It would be fun if you could just come up here and just nail these things down real quick, but you've got to do your layout, because these boards all have a little bit of a bow to them, and if you put the boards on at the proper spacing, it straightens everything out. So, as usual, it takes longer than you'd expect. Getting hot. So if you guys have used one of these quick grip clamps, you know that they're convenient, but they don't squeeze that hard. You don't get that much pulling force with them. And I can tell you, I need to pull this thing over like 3/4 of an inch, and it's not wanting to go. So this will move it some of that distance, but not all of it. But as usual, there's a trick. So that's about as far as I can get it, and I need to go more than 1/4 inch more. Use your swing press. It's amazing how much force you can get on one of these. So I'm squeezing the handle, trying to advance the clamp as I hit. And every time I hit, I get a little more on this. There you go. right now, the wind will blow right through this thing. So the wind has very little effect on it. Once you put a roof on there, you basically have a giant sail that can produce side loads and uplift and things like that. So it's braced this way permanently. It's not going anywhere. But this way, you know, these posts could potentially want to get a side load and try to fall over. So I need to put some angle braces in, and I'm not going to do a ton of them because I don't want them in the center here. I'm going to have a car lift here, and I'm going to be pulling my dump truck into this bay. So I don't really want things protruding down in there any more than they have to. I'm going to brace this side really well. I'm going to brace that cantilever, brace there, and then I guess I'll put a brace here. But I don't want to put a bunch of braces in here and have them being an obstruction for me. I'll brace those, take my temporary bracing off, and see how it feels. I think that'll be adequate because I'm going to be bracing these with 6x6s. Then I need to do some expansion bolts in the concrete, bolt all the posts down, put hurricane straps on so that the posts can't pull up off the concrete. The beam can't pull up off the posts. I've already attached that. The hurricane straps will keep the rafters onto the beams, and you know, then at that point everything is tied down.
Each post is getting one of these. And 3 structural lag screws.
These are toe-nailed in, but that's not adequate. You have to have something that really straps them down, and that's what these are for. This is tedious, time-consuming, and kind of mindless work, but palm nailers sure make it a lot easier. This is basically an air hammer with a magnet on the end that will hold your nail, and then just push on it to drive it in. These guys keep coming up to check my progress. I guess they're getting used to me because they're usually more skittish than this, but since I never show them any threats, I mean, they're only 40 feet away.
Now I'm waiting for the roof to be delivered. Here's the day I was working on my excavator, and I put up some tarps to get a little shade.
And now I've got to do a job that I've been kind of dreading. It's not going to be that bad. It's just annoying to do alone. I've got to put the fascia board on and the rake boards on. Well, wouldn't you know it, the shirt didn't work. I got COVID. I'm fine, but it really does take the energy out of you. Not going to stop me from putting out this video, though.
Yeah, COVID is no fun. I did not get it while building this project. I got it actually just after I released last week's video, and I've had it during the whole editing process. Thankfully for me, it hasn't been that bad. I'll be back to normal soon. Have to be. Got too much to do.
Man, that's a lot of work. All those blocks have to be cut individually, but they do look nice when they're all in a straight line like that. Those are important. When you get a big snow load on this thing, those rafters are going to have a lot of deflection, and what the rafters will start to do as they come down is they'll twist sideways, and then they get much weaker if they're not in a perfectly vertical orientation. So those blocks tie the bottoms together so that the rafters can't twist. And of course the bottoms are tied here, and they're also tied on the beam. So it's just in the middle of the span that you need them. Hey, look at that. The roof came. Rake board's on, fascia board's on. We are ready for a roof. It's about time. All right, I've got a string line up there to set the panels to. Roof's all cleared off. We're ready to put some panels up. Now, I've used roofing like this a lot, but I've never used panels this long. And I'm just not really sure how they're going to handle. Like, I think if I tried to just pick that up, it might fold in half. But they are pretty heavy duty. I don't know. I'm going to try and lay some on my little redneck scaffold here and see if I can't get a few of them up there that way. We'll just start out with one, see how that goes. So I got that panel screwed down. These are just screws. They penetrate the steel and then they have a little rubber washer on them that gets compressed and work very well. I've used this kind of roofing many times. Lasts many, many years. Easy to go down and reasonably priced. So, you know, this is a big roof. This whole roof's costing me $2,000 for this metal. And this stuff's pretty heavy. Pretty good stuff. So now the issue is, how do I get that stuff up here? That is a lot of work the way I did the first panel. Unfortunately, my tractor can't reach all the way up. It'd be really nice to be able to come up on the far end. That way the panels would already be oriented the right direction and I could just slide them into place. I know what you're thinking. Take your boom lift, put a couple straps on that, pick it up and set it up there. Yeah, I can't do that right now. You'll see why in a later video. Yeah. Let me see what I can figure out. Not horrible. Wish it was a little easier, but there's only 13 panels in total. I've already got 4 up there, so 9 to go. I have to do that 3 more times. I'll manage. Gonna get some exercise today though.
Because this roof is so low pitch, butyl tape is required where the panels overlap. This is actually fairly time consuming and kind of difficult. The tape doesn't go on very easily and tends to want to get out of position. This is what I found works best. There's still a paper covering on the tape, so it won't stick to the next panel yet. I put that panel in position. I screw down the far side to hold it in position. And then I come back and I take the paper off and then stick it. Once it touches that tape, it's very difficult to move.
See, that's where the panels are overlapping and that butyl tape is underneath there. So we need to screw that seam together too. For this, you use a shorter, fatter screw because it's just going through metal. It's not going into the wood, and it's pinching those two panels together where they overlap. To get the remainder of this roof up there and oriented in line with the rafters so that it's not in the way and I can put the panels on. I'm going to go for it in one shot because if I take it up in two batches, I'm going to end up scratching it all up as I move one piece against another. It'd be nice if I could reach up from that side, but it gets even higher over there. The concrete drops down, the roof is sloping up. I'm not even close. I just need a little bit of extra height, like about that much. Yeah, that's a bit sketchy, but I've done this before. You know, those are big, heavy timbers. The wood's not going anywhere as long as they don't shift. And I'm just going to drive my front wheels up on that. It's going to give me a little extra height. Should be able to get the roofing right to that point and then get up there and kind of rotate it around and slide it up the roof. I hope. There's 6 of these. It's quite heavy. It's heavy enough there's too much friction for me to be able to slide them up. So what I've done, I've clamped them together with 2 C-clamps. Yes, it's going to dent that a little bit, but that's all going to be up underneath flashing against the wall. You won't ever see it. Now I'm using a come-along to drag this thing up here. Come along, roof panels. The rest of the panels are up here. That was a lot of work. So while I've got easy access under this siding, I'm going to go ahead and put my flashing in and slide it all down. Then when I put the other panels on, I can slide a few pieces back. Trying to get it up under here with these in the way is not going to be fun. So let's avoid that. So let's talk about metal roofing for a second. This is an exposed fastener ribbed panel type roofing. This is an R panel, which is heavier gauge and has higher ribs. These ribs are 1.25 inches tall, and that allows it to be put on something as low as a 112 pitch. When you're low pitch like that, you have to do the tape. The panels are heavy, these are very long. So this roof wasn't super easy to put on. It still went pretty fast considering, but this is significantly more work than if you're just doing a more standard kind of roof. When I did that shed roof, and I have a video about this, I'll leave a link. So that is the classic ribbed panel, and that you don't need any tape. It's lighter gauge. It still like has a 30-year warranty, and they're really good, but those go down so fast, so easy. Those are a breeze to install. I think I put that roof down in a couple hours. No big deal. Now, on the main roof of this building, this is a non-exposed fastener standing seam. You could do old-fashioned standing seam where it's crimped on site. This is actually pre-formed panels that snap together. See how this snaps over that and it catches with that little hook there. So what happens is you put this panel down and it comes out, and you put a screw in before this panel's in place. You put a screw in to screw that side down. This side snapped to the other piece. So both sides are well attached. And then you snap this panel in place, screw this side down, snap this panel in place, screw this side down. So those go okay. You have to do some work, like on the ends, you have to trim it back and then bend this under, and then at the top you're going to have a ridge vent. This kind of roof is more expensive, but does give you the classic standing seam look. I like the fact that when it wears out, you rip it off and recycle it. You don't fill up a landfill, and they really last a long time. I will probably never have to deal with this again. You know, it might have a leak or two many years down the road. You just caulk it, and then as the paint gets old, you just start painting it every 10 years or so. This roof, you know, the 30-year warranty is before you paint it. After 30 years, you're just going to have to start painting it. But this roof should outlive me pretty easily. I just saw a squirrel climb up that pole. There he is. Hey, little guy. Did you get yourself in a pickle? Oh, good shot. Bunch of stuff I had laying around. I'm going to do 2 light switches, so 2 different runs. I'm going to put an outlet beside each light. 6 lights, 6 boxes, 6 outlets, 2 switches, all the plug plates, and then a double gang box for the switches. There's that hole we just cut. And this is the switch for the internal lights, but this is a different circuit. I'm just kidding. Breaker's off. This is a constant power that I put here with the intention of making lights for out there, thinking I'd do the switch here, but I'm just going to eliminate the switch inside and just have it outside. This is a GFCI protected circuit. I just need to run a wire from this box out to that box that's got the hot, the neutral, and the ground. Alright, so I decided I'm going to fish the walls here. I need to fish 2 wires up. We're going to come out right there. I forget what they call this stuff. It's wire that's specified to be exposed to exterior conditions. Fishing this wall might be a little tricky, so I'm going to drill a fairly large hole up here so that I can take a fishing wire and hopefully get it to come out of that hole, or at least be able to see it through the hole. A fishing wire, or a fish tape, a lot of people call it. It's not tape. It's very noisy and springy wire that generally has a bend on the end so that you can push it through things. So I have drilled a hole in this and also in the floor to get into the wall of the upstairs. And then from there, hopefully I'm going to be able to find that hole that I just drilled outside. Up through the floor. Now I'm just feeding it up through the wall, hopefully. I'm already meeting resistance, so sometimes you just have to work it back and forth and fiddle with it until you can get it to pass far enough. So get it up there plenty, and now I'm going to go look in that hole and see if I can find it. There's a possibility I'll have to make the hole bigger because I can't reach in there, but I can't feel it there. So I've got this wire with a little bend on the end, and I'm just trying to see if I can hear it. Ooh. Yeah, I can hear it hitting something that sounds like that fish tape right there. So now I'm going to try to hook it. Ooh. Do I have it? No. Thought I had it. No. There it is. So that's the thing I just fed up through there. So now I got to feed it back down until I get to the end. See, there's the end. So now I can pull that through. And I now have a wire, well, a fishing wire, not an electrical wire yet, where I need it to be. Just tape the wires to the fish tape. And basically you want to use plenty of tape unless you want to fish that hole again. But I don't think this one's going to be too hard. Might have just jinxed myself, but yeah, let's see how this goes. Way easier as a two-man job or two-woman job. We're an equal opportunity offender here. Now there's the end of it, but I'm having to pull pretty hard, so let me go feed a little more. So I don't have anyone else at home right now. If I did, I would definitely recruit a little help for this. Because when someone's pulling on the fish tape while you're feeding the wire, it goes through like a breeze. There it comes. I really like electrical wiring, but I find it kind of difficult to make videos of. It seems kind of boring in a video, but doing my best. Okay, I've put all the boxes up. So now I've got switched power to this box. I've got this wire going over here. I haven't put it through the box yet, but then I'm gonna have switched power to that box. At that point, it's just a matter of connecting hot to hot, neutral to neutral, ground to ground, receptacle there, receptacle there, receptacle there, and then plug in the lights. Same with up here. So now I'm gonna run wires between each box. Now all of these get done the same. The short prong on the receptacle is the hot, so the black goes to that side. The neutral goes to the other side, and then the ground goes to the frame, usually a green screw. First thing I do is strip about an inch from the end of the wires. Now I am going to wire this so that the current passes through the receptacle. Some people like to make it a practice where they would tie the hots together and then have a jumper come to the receptacle so that the only thing that goes through this is the current from the appliance that's plugged in it. If you put one hot here and then the other hot here and pass it down the line, what ends up happening is the current path is to come into this and go through this to the next one, through that one, to the next one, through that one. And you can get a fair amount of current coming through this little tab here. These wires you can just stab in the back and connect that way. And maybe I should, you know, that would be faster, but I just like using the screws. I feel like I'm getting a more reliable connection that way.
There's a very common belief that it's code that you must wire receptacles with pigtails. That is not true, and these receptacles are built and designed to be able to handle 20 amps going through that tab. Anybody who thinks it is code to wire that way, cite the actual code down in the comments. I'd love to see it. I need to add right here, there's something called a multi-wire branch circuit that does require pigtailing receptacles, but that's a specialized situation. That's not what I'm doing, and it's not what is typically done when you wire a circuit of receptacles.
And then I'll show you how I do my grounds. So I'm going to twist these together. That's a really good, reliable, permanent connection there. I went back and looked at my footage and I had no framing. You couldn't see anything. So here's one of those copper crimp connectors. It just looks like a little copper ferrule. And, you know, if these were the wires in your box, reach in, twist them together, get the pliers, give them a good tight twist. I usually take the longer of the two legs that's left, cut the shorter one off, and then you put your crimp connector over that. And I like to cover up the end of the cut wire just so that it's not jabbing into anything. And then you just kind of take on the edge of this with the pliers and squeeze it around that twisted wire. There. Gets it good and tight and permanent. And then you would attach this to your switch or your receptacle, whatever. And I take the leg that's remaining, stick it on the ground screw, and tighten her up. And that one's done. So there's that one. And I'm going to go to the next one right there, do the exact same thing. That's also a pass-through box. The last box just has one cable going to it because that's the last light. So that one's even easier. It's just one connection on the receptacle. So I'm going to hook those up. I'm going to hook those up. Those are all done, both lines. And now all we need to do is these switches. All right, so the grounds, you always just hook those together and pass them through. Basically everything needs a ground, so there's nothing really to think about with those. Well, that was a bad time for the battery to die, but let me just explain what I've got here. So I tied the grounds together, I left two legs, and I ran one to each switch. So each switch body is grounded. And that's all you do with the grounds. You tie them together, you ground everything metal. The neutrals are not involved with a switch. Those would be used if it was a receptacle, but right here all you need to do is pass them through. So just hook all those together, stick them to the back of the box. It's the hots that we need to deal with in this box. So this is the continuous hot that I got from that other box. And what I did is I put two jumpers on it so that I could run one to each switch. So there's three wires here. One of them is the hot that's coming into the box. One of them is going to this switch. The other is going to this switch. So continuous hots at the bottom. They could be at the top, it doesn't matter. And then this is one leg of my lights. And then this is the other. And that's all there is to it. You hook the grounds to everything. You pass the neutrals through. You take your continuous hot. You bring it to the switch and you send out two switched hots. And there you go. Tuck all that into the box. And when you do this, you do want to make sure you're not getting any ground wires or anything coming up toward your screws here where you're going to make a short. Let me acknowledge, this is not to code because technically I'd say this is a wet location and that should be in a covered box and more water resistant than that to meet code. But this is not a dwelling, this is not a residential outbuilding, this is a barn on a farm, and I could show this to my building inspector and he would not care one bit. I do not have to follow building codes. When I built this building, I got a permit. And he said, you can do whatever you want to do. The permit is free. You just have to get a permit so that we can have knowledge of the building. You know, for me, look at this roof. You know, I'm going to flash that. That's not going to leak. It's more than 12 feet to the edge of that. And I put this plug up high as well so that it's very unlikely to ever get wet. Everything's contained in a box. I mean, what is going to happen? If it gets wet, it might pop the breaker. It's not going to cause a fire. I didn't see a need to go buy a specialized box to put there for no reason. At the same time, those up there, technically wet location, come on, those are never going to get wet. That's ridiculous. And again, if they did, it wouldn't hurt anything. But this is one of those things where if you're doing a wiring job, you do need to follow your codes, especially if it's on a dwelling. You can't necessarily just do what I'm doing. And I should mention, like, a lot of people seem to think that the building codes are the law. They are not the law. It's up to the local jurisdiction to decide which codes they want to follow. And like, this is a perfect example. This is a barn. I don't have building codes. I can do whatever I want. That's just the way it is here. Now, if this was my house, I wouldn't have to follow building codes and this would not be legal. But where this is perfectly legal. So it's broad daylight out here, but let's see how bright these things are. Wow. Like, even in the daylight, I can definitely see the place light up. And I'll do the far ones now. Yeah, those are bright. That's going to be really nice. Let's let it get dark and I'll bring you guys back. I really want to see how this looks at night.
It's hard to show the effectiveness of lights on camera because the cameras adjust for different light conditions. But I'm pretty happy with these Hyperlites. I'll leave a link in the description.
Let's have some light. Man, that is from pitch black to full daylight. Awesome.
I don't think the camera does this thing justice. It's far bigger than it looks like on camera when I'm reviewing the footage. I'll put some equipment in it in just a little bit to show you.
So I'm sure some of you have spotted a problem with this, and that is when you have high ceilings like this and open walls, you actually don't have that much protection from the weather depending on which direction the wind is blowing. If it was raining, like in a storm, I would expect it to be getting wet all the way into here. Driving rain coming in, I mean, it's just not that much protection. And obviously snow will drift in a long way. Snow would go all the way to the doors. I think I have a solution for that. It's a bit of an experiment. I've never seen anyone do this before, but this is what I've come up with. What that is heavy canvas tarp, and I've got some old downspout, some 4-inch pipe at the bottom that I'm using to make it roll like that. The cords are fixed on this side. They come down around and then go up through a pulley and then come back to my pull line. So I've got 2 tarps, 4 pull lines, 1 constant 4-inch pipe at the bottom. That's a very light pipe. And these tarps actually aren't that heavy. I can lift this up pretty easily. All the other areas I will do a single tarp, but this one I wanted to bridge the opening because there's no post there for me to anchor to. I will probably make some, something I can hook this on both sides. And, you can see it's fairly windy right now, so it's moving it around. But, I think this is going to work for me. Most of the time I see myself using this thing open to air. This one in particular is very necessary because the western sun is right there, and in the late afternoon I would have hardly any shade in here at all, but with this I can shade it and keep the ends open to get good airflow. So this is heavy canvas. It's not gonna like flap like a regular tarp would. It's got a fair amount of weight to it to resist the wind and won't make too much noise, I don't think. And here you can see how it works. That is just fixed to the rafter up there. This piece of paracord, it comes down around the tarp and then goes up through a pulley. And then they all group together. They all go through their own pulley, go to the final pulley and down to the pull line. I hope it works. Those tarps aren't particularly cheap. Doing the whole structure, I think, is costing me like 600 bucks. I ordered the tarps online from Walmart. But the good thing is I can always use tarps. If I decide this isn't working and I need to enclose it, then I'll use the tarps for something else. Curious what you guys think? Is this a stupid idea or is this a good idea? Let me show you this thing going up. It's actually kind of cool. Pretty quick and easy, out of the way. Not really a big deal. Now, I've ordered more pulleys, more hooks. I'm gonna wait for those, but you guys get the picture. You don't have to see all the tarps installed. So I'm calling this done. What do you think? Big shop edition. That thing is 25 feet deep, 38 feet long. Man, that's gonna be so nice. I can just pull anything I want right underneath. And ultimately, I plan to put a car lift. I haven't decided. I'm either gonna put it here or there. I think it's gonna, the post spacing's a little wider here than that bay. And if it fit, I'm just gonna do the one that it fits better in. I'm actually kind of leaning towards this one because I like this big wide open area in the center. Shop edition, done. Now I got to get something under here and start working on that. Man, never ends. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you on the next one.